the unsurpassed, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rarely met with even in 100,000 million kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May we unfold the meaning of Tathagata's truth. 無常人人未妙法百千万号南遭遇我根検問特十字願下如来真実義 Thank you again for joining us today, both in person and on Zoom. It's great to see some of you. What I'm sharing on the screen here, sorry, it's with all this on Zoom setting. You can't really see the entire picture. Well, thanks to the flexible schedule of Sozenji Temple, and try not to take it for granted, of course, I've been able to travel a little bit since I moved up here from Long Beach, which I have been serving, the community I served previously for 7.5 years. Sozenji Temple, as I get to know this community more, it's been really interesting as I start to feel rather pulling out of myself from Japan to assimilate to US. This temple has a unique sense of direction, which I never expected, which this temple has been pulling me in all different directions, more international, more global, yet more Japanese than I anticipated initially. Language, culture. Last week, actually, the temple, it's called San Francisco Zen Center, which started from Sokoji Temple, one of the 3 temples in Sotoshu. This community is the de facto center of the Western Buddhism. From this place, in all directions across Europe, South America, and partially to Africa, Buddhism has been penetrating through across the continents. And I had an honor to serve as interpreter of this person who's standing next to the person with the right blue robe. The person with the blue robe, David Zimmerman, he's a central abbot of San Francisco Zen Center now. But the person who's standing next to him is Hoitsu Suzuki. He is a son of Shunju Suzuki Roshi, who is, I have to be careful with the wordings because I work for the organization, but many have seen him as a Dogen Zenji, someone equivalent to Dogen Zenji for us in Japan, somebody who really planted the seed of Buddhist practice, Zen Buddhism, in a Western culture. So I was able to translate for this Roshi. And Hoitsu Roshi on this occasion shared this talk specifically for directors, administrators of the temples. So I thought it might be good to share this with the board members. And it was very kind of him, excuse me, to share that on this occasion at Mountain Seed Ceremony of San Francisco Zen Center, where the initial generation who started expand this community in the 50s and 60s are now transitioning to the new generation, who are not so different from, I'm sorry, my generation, Generation X, millennials, which you call. So it's been a big shift for them. And when I look at this, and so now they have a new leaders. Now, this teaching of Hoitsu Roshi shared comes from a chapter of this book called Chiji Shingi, Pure Standards for Temple Administrators, written by Dogen Zenji. And this is specifically about 2 monks. One is Jimyo, who lived from 1986 to 1039, and Hoe from 1992 to 1049 in China. Hoitsu Roshi was such a casual, very charming person, so I can never convey the message the way he did. But at least since I remember what he shared, I do my best to convey what he shared with them. So Jimyo was a teacher of Hoe, and this Hoe is like now Daibu was helping us with chanting, and many Scots here. There were students. And he was very passionate, dedicated, and Hoe's aspiration was very strong. And the way Jimyo instructed Hoe was interesting. One time, Hoe was asking Jimyo, his teacher, to really teach him what this is all about, what this practice is, or what this tradition, or the Zen practice is about. And he really wanted to know the gist or elements or the core teaching. And to which Jimyo, his teacher, always said, you know what? You are the director of the temple. You have stuff to do. So go back to your office. Take care of your business. Take care of your work. He never really answered his questions. But that was his message. And then once Hoe was so frustrated, he waited for Jimyo to show up on the road, on the path. He was ambushing him and grabbed his teacher and said, I will beat you if you're not going to teach me what this is all about, this teaching. And it's, this is in medieval China. And then once upon a time, it was okay for, I guess, students to beat up their teachers. No, so I don't think it happens anymore, but it's just some people get really passionate and dedicated, and then they can go blind sometimes. And this is something, I guess, some people who practice Buddhism as a new culture, new religion in this country probably might want to keep in mind. Anyway, so he said, and then because Hoe said to his teacher, Jimyo, I'll beat you if you're not going to teach me. Jimyo's response was, well, you work for the temple, you're the director of the temple, and you do your work. What else are you looking for? What more are you looking for? What else is there that you need? One rainy day, Jimyo left the monastery, and then Hoe was really wanting to capture the moment, to grab his teacher, still seeking for the way, deeper understanding. Jimyo said, as I said, isn't this enough? What else is there that you're seeking? And this is the essence of Zen practice that we follow. Japanese culture has these elements deeply embedded as part of our culture. What else besides this that you're seeking? And before Jimyo finished this sentence, according to Dogen, Hoe attained some realization and tried to offer prostration out of respect. And to which Jimyo said, well, you're kind of on my way because I'm on my way to visit my friends. So Jimyo kind of pushed him aside. He didn't push him aside. This is an ancient story. So back then, Jimyo, this teacher, was visiting this elder lady who must have been a long-time friend. And Hoe expected Jimyo, his teacher, to be always at the temple. And one time, there was a kind of question-answer sort of a interview time for all the students to ask questions to the teachers. But that ceremony didn't stop when the time came. So Hoe asked these monks, what's happening? And then the monks in the assembly said, well, our Roshi, our teacher, is not here at the temple. So Hoe kept looking around, and he found out that Jimyo was visiting his old friend, the elder lady, again. So Hoe went to see this elder lady's house where Jimyo was visiting, and asked his teacher to please come back to the temple. But then Jimyo asked his student, Hoe, well, if you can impress me with some understanding, then I might change my mind and go back to your temple. It's quite a delinquent teacher, I think. So Hoe kind of put his hat on his head and walked around. And I can leave that to your interpretation. But apparently that impressed his teacher, Jimyo, and came back. Jimyo had this terrible habit of sneaking away from the temple. So Hoe came up with this idea of ringing the bell to initiate the service, shosan, every time he notices his teacher trying to sneak out of the temple so that he can't get away. And when Jimyo was frustrated, like, is there this service in the evening? Is there a service in the late afternoon? Hoe, the student, being a student, replied to his own teacher, yes, it has always been the rule since your teacher's days. So it's a bit of a riddles. It's hard to understand sometimes, this kind of Chinese ancient stories. But the point Hoitsu Roshi was trying to tell us, share with us, was that Hoei's practice started with his own, maybe self-cultivation. Maybe you can compare it to our mental health, well-being, your own health. I don't know, maybe your hobby, maybe your entertainment. There's a reason for you to come to the temple. Maybe for your family connections, for emotional needs, whatever. But then from there, Hoe moved on to even to this point where he started reprimanding his own teacher for the sake of the temple, for the sake of his own assembly. So his practice somehow, before he realized, transformed his own kind of individual need-based practice or path to something that encompasses the needs of the entire Sangha, entire temple, entire community. So in that sense, Jimyo was such a skillful teacher. Hoe became a great Zen teacher later on and remembered as one of the historically important Zen teachers in the medieval China. So that's the lesson Dogen Zenji shares through this Chiji Shingi. And this is, I think, applies to all of us. And I was translating. There are some difficult kind of phrases, expressions that Hoitsu Roshi used. That was the gist of the Dharma talk he shared at the Zen Center of San Francisco. From our own pursuit of self-interest, self-fulfillment, to the practice of selfless embodiment of Buddha Dharma. That can even transcend teacher-student boundary, member-teacher boundary, because we know what we are carrying, what we are taking care of. Now, that's the end of the Dharma talk. I kind of want to share announcements to you quickly.